Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Dlight Sair episode 5 with Boomie and Taza. Today we're going to be talking about just in general commentary about in Brawlhalla and kind of our criticisms and what we like and what we would change.
With special guest Diakou.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us on such short notice. Literally
Yeah.
5 minutes ago, we're recording
That's
this.
fine.
So yeah, let's get started. I think. Before we open up anything in specifically, because this is like sudden to me. We have a recent plan, but like Boomy, you just came to me and you're like, I want to talk about this. So why do you want to talk about this? Let's tell everybody why.
Okay, so
what do you want to talk about?
So the Brawlhalla Pro Series happened this weekend, and there's one moment in specific that I kind of want to talk about. And I feel like there's pros and cons about this specific thing, and I'll just stop stalling and just play it.
So just one.
Yeah, so this is just one thing.
But I guess it probably applies over several.
Yeah, so
millennia.
Let's play it.
As soon as he's near the corner, he uses the sidelight to push him off so that he can start playing off stage, because that's really where he shines. This is it, just like that. Oh, he almost got it, and Remy got the. Oh my gosh! Wrench, unbelievable!
So what happened is Remy gimped wrenched, and then he overextended with a ground pound, and wrenched reversed it and came back on. I feel like there's a philosophy in Brawlhalla esports commentary, which is everything is always good, and personally, I'm not a big fan of this. What do you think, Taza?
So I really closely watched the clip a few times now, and before what Wrench did there was pretty good considering this thing that he was being offered.
Yeah. So in that,
to give it to people that are watching and aren't maybe entirely sure, and maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, Remy by all means killed him.
Yeah, he was dead.
Yeah, he had nothing left except an upwards dodge, which was never going to reach the stage. Remy, in a fit of rage or passion, or it just really wanted to slow. That's another cool thing to me about Brawlhalla players, is that some players will just do above and beyond for no logical reason other than that they feel it, right? Goes for this stupid ass ground pound. Like this thing that's out of nowhere. I'm like, why would you do this? By doing this, even if it worked out, you're still getting the same result. And if it doesn't work out, you die. And he does it anyways. Falls off the bottom of the map, misses the ground pound by the dodge by a hair. Wrench manages to get the nair off, and then perfectly upwards chase dodges to barely touch the Mammoth Fortress platform after holding right after the dodge is done. That's actually pretty good. Now, I just gave an analysis over it, and I'm actually pretty damn excited about what I saw. So I can imagine that in the moment, the casters are also really damn excited about what the heck, Wrench is dead, but somehow Remy did a dumb thing, and he made the best out of that because he still had to play that perfectly. Yeah. After Remy decided to go suicide dive off the edge with his sword. So, what do you think about that? I just said
the thing is, the way you did that, I mean, that was way longer, is that you at least emphasized on the fact that this wasn't necessarily a good play by Wrench to begin with. It was making the best he could in the scenario, but it wasn't something that was specifically hard from any player's perspective, because first of all, it was with guitars, and all he had to do was just press nair.
And that's happening regardless of whether you think about it or not.
You're just pressing nair. He dodged when he had to dodge, at least hoping he could maybe touch further up. He didn't, and then he naired at the end. He's like, "Oh, Remy's actually right next to me. I'm just gonna nair." And then he got the nair, and then he jumps up. It's not like it was a precise attack. It's not like the dodge was super precise. There was another moment in Pro Series, and I wish I actually had the clip where there was like two different times where both players hit each other. I think it was with Sandstorm, I'm not sure. And they bounced off of each other, and then one of them managed to barely survive at the end of it. That is more skillful because both people are in a scenario where no one really messed up hard to begin with. It's just both of them trying to capitalize off of each other's mistakes. This one, however, was just one person capitalizing off of one person's horrible mistake and them instantly being like, "Oh, this is the most crazy play ever. Wrench is insane," and all these things. I can see why they did it, and I understand why they did it, because to everyone else, well, to most people that aren't that knowledgeable about it, and in the chaos of what's happening, if you hype it up the way you did, that they did at least, it will be hyped no matter what. Because just how the scenario is, it's last stock, all these. I mean, it's an important stock, and all these things matter. But we see this case in the commentary a lot, where there will be a moment that is really not special at all. And I get it from maybe from a more casual point, it will be a bit more special, but I don't think it's. But I think if you keep emphasizing all these small aspects, when something actually legit happens and you give the same reaction to that thing, it may look on the same scale when it's not. It's completely different. And that is an issue I have with current Brawlhalla Commentary, at least, where you keep hyping up every moment as if it's the same. So the hype at the end of the day is just
It's the same.
Hype.
It's
Yeah.
not hype. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, here comes that. What do you think? It makes me think of like a soundboard.
Yeah.
Soundboard cast a reaction for player death at last stock game number 3 on Mammoth Fortress. Whoa, look at that ground pound, barely missed, got the chase dodge, went to the edge of the stage, now he's back. What an amazing win from Wrenched over Remy.
Yeah.
That thing.
Yeah. And more specifically, like in this scenario, this was not like, okay.
I think this is pretty cool.
It was hype. I won't
Did
deny
you see Wrench
it was
touch
hype.
the stage? I can't even believe that worked. And I'm not
Yeah.
even like marveling over the ability of the players here. I'm more like marveling over what he made that work. It shouldn't have worked. Like that's more of like what I'm doing, because it's just like, hey, they should have both been dead there. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But in that moment, it's also like the coolest thing you've ever seen, because you need Remy to be the dumbass that does that for that to even happen. Otherwise, like Wrench would have just like dodged upwards and sadly fell to his death while Remy danced on the stage. You know, like
Yeah.
obviously it sucks because Remy lost that stock, but
Yeah, and I
go ahead
think
with what you're saying.
I think well, we can just move on from that. I think what Diakou was saying at the end there about how everything is hype, so nothing is hype, is a huge problem. And I
Yeah.
think I also think that it's hard for casters to keep it up. Like
very true.
the entire time, because some things that are genuinely not interesting, like matches that aren't interesting, they shouldn't try to make it hype because it's not. But I feel like that agenda is being pushed so hard.
Diakou, were you going to say something?
I do have a comment about that. I think the bigger issue is that I don't think it's hard for a caster to know what to do in a scenario where something isn't hype. If you watch an EU game and both players are literally on the other end of the stage camping each other out, you got to figure something out real quick. And in that moment, you have a choice. If they actually are engaging each other once or twice, maybe you can try and make it hype by like saying they're incredible spacing, whatever. It's not true. They're actually just trolling. But or you can go into specific in-depth, start having in-depth commentary instead, and actually talk about the matchup, talk about something else, talk about something that might be interesting that other players don't know about, instead of actually just talking about the game at that point. Because I do feel like there are times where casters fall into the trap of actually just talking about the match when the match is just not interesting. It's just not, and it's hard to. It's sometimes matches are actually so hard to commentate to like even make them interesting that anything you say, it's barely salvaging it. There are few matches that do have that issue, and I do feel like when you try and do this fake hype thing for it, it's just hard. It just gets hard to watch. It just gets harder to watch. It's hard to explain.
So, not directly related yet, but a question that I want to ask. Do you feel like that this occurrence is prevalent at LANs? Or do you feel like this is something that you notice more with the online events?
I think it's more of an online thing. I
Okay.
generally think LANs, when it comes to commentating, at least at LAN, because the casters can feed off of the energy, I feel like, and also the players are feeding off of whatever energy.
Well, there's also just the natural storyline of this is day 1, this is day 2, this is day 3. I found that I've loved personally. I mean, everybody loves an offline event that they can make it to, right? Yeah. But what I love working at offline events is that you get to see the really good players occasionally smash the not so good players, and you get that moment of like you said, there's no way that's even expected to be hype. I'm not going to hype up like Steve McGee 36 fighting against Boomie on stream, and he's just wailing on him with Taros or something, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to talk about I like making like little mini games with the cast. It's like, okay, if you can get a hit here, or if you can find this signature because I see that he's going for it, that is a win in my book, like one of those things. Or talk about like what the player's trying to do to adapt. Lands, I think, really cater towards that scaling hype to where when you finally get to the final day and you've watched this player work all weekend to get to this point, it's actually exciting, and all that hype all the time is palpable. I keep going back to DreamHack Austin. There's that huge YouTube video from VG Bootcamp between Boomie and Kostlix, and it has a ton of views. And I remember listening to myself, I'm like, wow, I'm really into this match. I'm like, I can't believe I was getting excited listening to I don't actually listen to my commentary too much, but I know the reason why that was because I was watching this Lance player who at the time I did not know anything about completely destroy people at this event. And it was so exciting to me. And I feel like because it was a LAN, it really offered to that, whereas online events, I feel like I noticed what you're talking about a lot more because it starts at top 12 or top 8. You don't get to see the storyline of the trip that people made. A lot of the time, you're sitting down and you're going, oh, this guy lost apparently in top 16. Wait, what happened to him? Wait, where did Eddie and Kate go? Like it was like at the EU2, it was like, wait, where are those people? And I look in the bracket, I'm like, I would have loved to have seen that upset happen. Where did that happen? And you don't get like the action of reporting it live as you're at the event. Like everybody goes like, oh, somebody drowned in pools, whatever, like Boomie, when you lost, I think you got second seed in a pool at a LAN once.
Yeah.
And everybody was just kind of like, oh, Boomie got second out of his pool. Like it was just like going around, right? As a murmur. And even though it sucks for you, it's also kind of exciting for everybody else.
I mean, it's super exciting in general when stuff like that happens, though. But
yeah,
I think CU Dreamland was my tournament that I really was like, wow.
Okay.
I like everything that's going on right now. I don't know what it was. There was just something like people hark on me a bit about that, but the Boomie versus Noel match in the grand finals, I thought that was one of the most hypest like Brawlhalla matches ever.
Well, that was during a time where Noel was super dominant too.
Well, at that time he was more unknown.
Yeah. So
I felt like he was becoming. Well, was he really?
No, that was like his breakout.
Okay.
What happened was that was Boomie's staple coming out in 2017 and being like, "Hey, I'm gonna be one of the best this year," and then he was super good. Like no one knew Boomie was that. People knew Boomie was good, top 3, top 5 level, but I don't think people expected him to just straight up dominate the way he did at CO Dreamland. And then he just goes through. Noel was not at that level at all.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
But then he showed up this weird fight, and then Boomie and Noel, for some reason, both just go crazy off stage. Like they actually just straight up kept just YOLOing each other. It was like it was so weird. They kept choosing these options that just like, why are they doing this? But it was just so hype, and then the entire stage, you felt it, and everyone was talking about it while we were watching. We're just like, what is going on? This is actually crazy. And the casters were super hype about it. The casters were just like, we haven't seen people play that much off stage and that much like risk at that time, at least for 2017. And I think that is one of those genuine moments because like the gameplay's elevated and now the casters are like, wow, like this feels good. Like everything just feels perfect because the casting is finally about something that genuinely is new, something that is good. And that
moment for me like that was watching Hazen play at the last event. Maybe he's not like I'm not. How do I put this? I watched a lot of Brawlhalla. I'm not a pro level Brawlhalla player. However, when I see somebody doing something with Hammer, when I don't think there's any Hammer players doing anything in tournament and he's getting wins, that's super exciting to me. That was one of those moments where I felt like, I don't know, did you both watch the NA Spring Champs 1v1 matches.
Yeah.
Where, like, hasn't had that set against Kostelix, where Kostelix played not like himself ever. It was so weird. I don't know what happened. It was like Hazard was making people play like without a brain. It was awesome. I got really hyped about those things. Did you feel like hype was misplaced in those events?
Boom, you can take that one.
Because I want to. If I do things where it's like, Taza, you're waffling. What the heck's wrong with you? Hit me right now, because I don't get a lot of opportunities where I get to talk, like this, like, respectively, I guess.
So
just
good.
Yeah. Just as like, I know exactly what you're talking about, Taza. It's just like that moment where like you feel like you're actually a viewer, but you're casting it.
Yeah, it was like, oh, dude, look at what has it. What was that? Like he did some Dlight combos off stage that led into moves that I didn't think would work. I don't think actually work. I think they're just really good reads.
I think it's fine when it comes from that perspective, when it comes from the perspective that you are genuinely like, wow, what is going on? But I don't feel like that's what's happening with
like most of the time.
I genuinely feel like a quote unquote not the best player does the most basic things, and then it just gets hyped up so much, and you're just like, you can feel that the impact is not the same. Because if you can, let's take a player like Simba. He'll do something really weird, blah blah. They'll hype it up. You can feel the impact of that. But when you do the exact same thing for something that actually isn't that special, you actually don't feel the same impact. The strength behind the words isn't there anymore. And it's just that's like one of the smaller issues that I'm having.
And you're noticing this as a spectator or a listener to some of the games.
I'm not talking about like as in from a perspective of good, but I'm a better player or anything like that. It was more from a perspective of how does it feel as an entertainment value? Because what I see other people do in other games when something isn't like up to par, and you're trying to talk about it, instead they actually just emphasize hits more in terms of like, oh, he hit him with the gates of blah blah blah, something like that. You're just
they give fun little names to things.
Yeah, they give fun little names of things. They're just having fun. Like instead of they're bringing the entertainment themselves at this point because the gameplay itself is not up to par.
Yeah, exactly. So with the CEO thing and like kind of with what Taz was talking about, I think the hype should come from the game, right? But when it's not, like Diakou just said, it's the role of the commentary, like the commentators, to provide entertainment, but the entertainment doesn't have to be artificial hype, which I think is a huge problem. And going back to what Taz was saying about that feeling that he felt like he was truly engaged as a viewer, I think those moments are when commentary is the best.
Oh yeah, but you can't always replicate that.
Yeah, exactly. So it shouldn't be replicated. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's all that it is trying to be.
That was an insightful statement that you just made.
And another thing is like, say the commentators are taken out of the equation, right? And you're just watching with the stream muted. I feel like when something is hype, it happens without the commentators. But the role of the commentators is to highlight the hype. Yeah, make it more hype.
Yeah.
I feel like the commentators should echo the sentiment of what, like, the reaction that you get without the commentators.
Yeah, you're basically a viewer sharing what you think with an audience.
Yeah, and providing insight because you're an expert. Yeah, exactly.
And then maybe because like what I remember when I was first starting out, the approach that my philosophy when doing any commentary is that there are things that I notice that make watching Brawlhalla fun for me that I want other people to notice so that they can enjoy it too. So I'll see something where I'll be like, I think I know why this guy did this. He was putting himself into a position to be able to go for this follow-up, and you could watch him try to do that again. And then I'll state what he did, why he did it, the result. And then when it comes up later on in the match, I'll be like, hey, look, there's that setup that he was going for, right? This is why Little Cap stomps several places. Actually, I've never figured out why Little Cap stomps and that doesn't do anything after. I really just think that he's misinputting. I never like that. That's a thing. That's an issue with commentating too. Is I want to say it's a playstyle, but also I just think sometimes a little cap is just.
Yeah, and I think in those moments it's important to point it out because in super
but it
high...
also feels like, is it like, do I want to just keep going like, I wish he would follow up with us?
No.
Yeah.
So it's not about
dragging on.
Yeah, it's not about dragging them.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about acknowledging what is happening on the screen. Because
Right, and helping your viewers acknowledge it too.
I feel like that's something that, like, it feels sometimes that the commentators are literally in denial of what is going on.
Yeah,
And
they're making up their own story. And
dude, it's hard when you pick Cross in Pro Series and I have to commentate it, and I'm looking at you and I'm going, Boomie. And then I made sense of it because I was also thinking, okay, if my first thing is like, because you have years ago you have a history of sometimes memeing. Mm-hmm. It's not like such a big deal anymore. But when I saw the cross pick, two things came to mind. One was like, well, Hellboy event happened, so you're having fun. Two, gauntlets are flavor of the week or the month, and blasters you're very good with, and you have a history of picking other characters like Vrax or Diana, where blasters is the primary focus, and then you've got the other weapon. So cross makes a ton of sense. So that's what I said as a commentator, because part of me wants to go like, then the other part of me goes like, okay, yeah, that's fine, and then you busted out and got completely wrecked.
Yeah, I think there's two sides when something like that happens. When a pick like that happens, there's instantly two sides. You have the Diakou side. I'm just gonna call it the Diakou side right now.
Sure,
we're bringing it up, and it's I will instantly be like, this is a disrespect pick, this is a troll pick, because I know it is.
I had the Diakou side of me going like,
but
boom.
You can't. The thing is, you can't do that side because as a pro commentator, you actually can't do that full Diakou side.
Well, I would want to, because it looks bad on me and the players.
Exactly. I'm just saying. So we don't do the full Diakou side, right? But then you have the other side, which is the PG side, and it's like instantly finding reasons that aren't actually that logical because you know better. And it's just like, oh, well, gauntlets are really good, blah, blah. And this pick might actually really work out. Like, maybe this is a super secret pick that Boomie has actually worked on. And it's a counter to whatever the enemies do. No, you're creating too many of stories. What you can do, though, is you can actually find a middle ground and be like, well, it's a bit odd seeing the cross pick come out. However, yes, he does have strong gauntlets. He does have blasters,
and Boomie maybe plays blasters.
Yeah, and then you can be like, but there is a slight possibility that this pick is more of a dominance thing from Boomie.
Yeah, he's flexing on him.
He's flexing a bit. He doesn't want to show his entire legend. You know, you can go from that. You can find that,
and that's exactly what I did, because I think there was also the Knicks situation earlier.
You might have done that, but I feel like every other caster, there is this weird thing where where they go on this insane like multiverse theory.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the Lil Cap stomps. One thing that would, like, if someone's red and this was literally the killing hit and he stomps.
Oh, don't get me started.
And he stomps and he doesn't do anything.
The worst part is that he wins those games anyways. And I go like, oh god.
And he doesn't do anything. You're instantly like, oh my god, why did he not X? That would have been the finishing kill, and then you're anxious. Be anxious for him, you know. I know you do that.
It's fun because usually when he does that, it's last stock, and he could have won the game, and then he didn't win the game, and then he has to work really hard to get them again, because as good as Downlight is on Hammer, it's kind of hard to hit.
And then he does it again, and then he misses again. It's just like, but what I'll see other people do for some, like, I don't know if they're scared of like talking about it, but they're like, oh, he has a bigger plan for hitting that stop.
Like,
no, he messed up. He was red. No matter, like, any player knows to kill at that point. That's a mess up.
So,
but you don't have to necessarily like be annoyed about them, because that is once again the Diakou spectrum. But you can't be like, oh, he was trying to do something else.
But he wasn't.
And what you're describing, I feel like, is one of the greatest challenges to being
lying.
Being in a position that I've been in many times, you've been in a few times too, and that is trying to find a balance between between all those things that you just said, because you said you had like the opposite ends of two spectrums, right? There's we're just going to call it Diakou zone or fake hype zone, whatever. And you want to find that in between, because that's that genuine middle where like there's enough real content coming to the viewer, and then there's also enough speculation that allows the viewer to craft their own stories while enjoying the story that you're making. And you're talking a lot about how like, and I don't want to make this into like a beatdown. This is why I was kind of hoping that we had other commentators in there, because we're not naming specific names. I don't want to.
Nope.
Definitely don't.
Not at all. Yep.
Because I know that a lot of the things that we're talking about, I've definitely done. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, oh, by the way, wall slip activates after, because it's like, a part of me likes doing noob informant stuff, especially at LANs. I'm like, there's probably new people watching. I'm going to inform them about some of our mechanics. Some of our mechanics make no damn sense.
I think knowing the environment is also important. And I think that's
because I'll go into a gravity cancel tutorial if I feel like there are people watching. I remember at DreamHack Atlanta, there's a security guard watching, and she was like, I don't know why everybody's excited, but I'm excited right now. And she turned to me and said that, and I was like, that's awesome, because that means we're doing it right. Where was this tangent going?
So what you were
what
saying,
was I saying?
You were like, casting is super situational, like.
So yeah, and I think that balance is something that dedicated commentators at least should be. I think they are constantly fighting to reach. And there's a lot of extraneous things that come up in the middle of casts. Like, I know that sometimes your production team is remote. Sometimes they're there. Sometimes production's not working very correctly. You've got a lot of voices that sometimes go in between your ears that they shouldn't be, but sometimes they have to be, that are telling you about certain things. I'm not saying this happens all the time, but I'm also saying that if a commentator's focus isn't 100% on the game in front of them, sometimes the generic hype casting comes in, or sometimes the generic
freeze moments. That's what I call it.
And I don't mind that happens. I would much rather have a commentator recycle some quality stuff to use as filler, or to use as like I don't know what happened here, but I'm going to say what I think is going to sound good to most people, and it does sound good to most people. I also think that a lot of the things that you two are bringing up are like, this is something that the pro players notice the most, but many of the viewers just don't give a damn about a lot of those details. They just want to hear.
Sure, but can it be better? That is
absolutely. But I'm not excusing it, but I'm also saying that there's a lot of things that casters have to think about.
Yeah. I'm just saying, because there's one thing that's just a bit strange to me, and it's just like, because I've heard this before, at least, where ex-casual player doesn't care about why, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine, but what if you show them the other thing and they actually like that so much more that they actually got even more engaged? You know what I mean?
I love that. But that's like what I live for. Yeah, totally.
But because not you, but because like
the caster,
someone might tell you, has this mindset that it doesn't matter anyways, right? That getting that viewer super engaged might never happen, because you don't think it actually might matter, because you genuinely think that it doesn't matter because they're fine with how it is. You know what I mean? Your complacency is the word here. You might get a bit complacent when you do the same thing a lot. I think I'm gonna actually just talk about something that I know most people wouldn't want to talk about. Just cut it out if we shouldn't have it. And it is.
Can you preface it with what?
The
topic is before you go into detail?
Oh yeah, of course. There is a chance that I have a feeling that sometimes I know production teams want you to do certain things that you personally might not agree with, just because of the fact that you're forced to be in a certain PG stance sometimes. Like, you're forced to do certain things sometimes. You're forced to.
Totally.
Sometimes they tell you that you're forced to hype yourself up.
So I wanna clarify on that. That's like
industry standard.
Yes.
This exists in workplaces globally. Yeah. That's like a thing that's just part of being adult, is I represent this company now. I have to say things a certain way, especially if I'm under their...
I don't mean the wording. I mean specifically that once there is, I have a feeling that a lot of our casters, BMG, puts out some restricts on them that they panic to the point where like they can actually say certain things and it would have been fine, but they don't know and they're terrified because what if that thing actually makes
Gets
it
them
so
fired.
that yeah.
Yeah. So
And that scares me. I feel like
Interesting.
that happened. I feel like that happened. I feel like some casters get limited because of that. I actually do feel that. I don't know if it's completely true, and I don't want to go too far onto it because of that.
I will comment on that a little bit because from experience, I would have to say that yes, you do get comments sometimes about like, oh, by the way, don't rag down on this player too much, or not even on the players in general, right? Because there have been moments where I worked gigs where there was a time I don't have any specific examples, but it's just kind of like if you're watching somebody having a bad day and you talk about them having a bad day, like I used to. Oh God, I remember when Steven Air used to play a lot and casting wasn't as regulated. You would talk about the mood of the player a lot. It's like, oh, this player tilts a ton, and he's having a bad time, and
I don't
so,
like that.
I don't like that either. And that was an example of like a hey, by the way, don't comment on his mental state that you think he has because that's not okay, and it isn't. We'll get things like that. I don't. There's not like a code of. So I work with BMG a lot. There's not a code of conduct on how you're supposed to commentate, I suppose, if that's what you're suggesting. And I don't know if I've ever really felt that way. But outside of that, it's not super strict. It's usually just like a don't put the guy down. Try to talk about who's doing something well rather than who's doing something poorly.
I'm not saying it's strict. I'm saying you just don't want to risk it. Because you don't know.
That's true too.
You just don't know what can happen out of certain things.
Yeah.
And there's never like because there are cases where going on the extra side sometimes might actually have a really good insight because there are. I'm not saying do it as a norm. You don't do it as a norm. It's just sometimes 1 in 8, 1 in 10, 1 in whatever. There is a chance where like, oh, there actually is this cool point that I can bring up, but it's a bit more on the side. An example would be if you like it's weird, but like at a LAN, if you genuinely saw a player looked super tired, you know what I mean, and they actually looked really like for a fact that this is actually a thing. I'm not saying like you're assuming. I'm saying you pretty much know. And the gameplay is just going really bad, and you mention it once or twice. It's not necessarily an excuse for a person. It does, and it doesn't make the other player that's winning against him's value go down either, but you are mentioning why the player's not up to what standard that he might be in because
it's tough. So this is tough. I'll give you an example of something. I have a very direct example of this happening recently. When I was casting Pro Series with Oda, Cody Travis recently got his wisdom teeth taken. He has wisdom teeth taken out on the same day that he had to play, and he almost didn't show up because of it. And we were like going to mention, right? We were just going to because it was like important to say like, oh, I might not be playing on par today. Just got back from an operation, whatever. We decided not to, and thank goodness that we did because he destroyed people. And it was just kind of like because I have that issue of like. And maybe I should have mentioned it because it would have been like, oh wow,
even better. But
Cody's such a badass. His mouth is numb and swollen from an operation, and he beat the crap out of everybody regardless.
Yeah,
or it could have been like a pity thing of like, well, he lost, but also his mouth was bleeding, right?
You don't have to do it from that side. You can be more like, although this is a Pro Series and blah blah, we're expecting people stand. It's like this. Instead, you put it from a standard place, or like. He shows up like he's ready to fight, has wisdom to like it's just to make it as a comedy thing. If you're not sure if he's going to do well, make it a comedy thing. If he did well and you haven't mentioned it until then, you could actually mention it and be like, who would have thought that, blah blah blah, even with X issue.
All right. I was thinking it had to have been mentioned before the match started. That way we didn't feel like we were jawing for him.
Yeah.
But I like how you put it.
Before a match, I think you should just do it as a comedy point. Most of the time when it comes to more, if it's possible to do it as a comedy point, sometimes it may not be possible, and then it's just your own discretion.
Do you think we should mention if we think players are lagging like Wilson?
I don't
think. No.
So
I think lag is an issue because of that's it. It just doesn't feel good. I think
it feels like an excuse.
It's just lag. I think in general, lag just needs to. I think that's like one of the holy things. Just don't mention computer issues or lag.
Because it kind of takes out of the experience of things.
Yeah, just
I know that when I watch a lot of other esports, StarCraft 2 is one of my favorite to watch, and occasionally they have things where, because the spectate client, as good as the replay system and everything else is in that game, you have to have people actively in the game spectating it. So if their client crashes, it pauses the game for everybody for 60 seconds, and you have to see it. And it's one of
I see that. I see that.
It's one of the worst things, and it stops the game. And chat's just kind of like, haha, whatever, because they're laughing because there's like 18 different community commentators, and one of them's like from Brazil, so Brazil gets disconnected, and everybody's making fun of Brazil or whatever. And that's like not fun. I'm not saying it ruins it completely, but it also is just not great. And I guess that gives me a similar feeling of the like, oh, we're just completely disregarding this match because of the fact that so and so is lagging during the middle of this match. Like, it's probably not good.
I think what I've noticed works the best though when that happens is actually not talking about it too much.
Yeah. Definitely.
There's like I've actually noticed like whenever a play just like jumps off and he just dies, and you know that's a lag out because you can tell
it hasn't happened in a while
because you can specifically tell that it was a lag out. Every time a caster just like starts saying like, oh, why is he doing that? Why is he and they're like giving reasons for it. I think people instantly like, okay, the gig is up. Like, like it's bad. But I think it's more like if you just mention it once, or like, oh
yeah. Usually what I do is like, oh, that he clearly lagged off the edge. That sucks. It's like it's just like
nope, that's the wrong side. That's the wrong side. Oh, you're dead. And then you're done. Like, just let it be there.
And as long as the match continues, it goes on because it has to. There's no if you suicide off the side of the stage because of your connection, tough luck. If it happened the first 10 seconds, you got to play it out. So I don't just go like, oh, this match could have been so different. Whatever.
What could be better?
Okay, so before we move on, there's like a few topics I want to touch on.
Sure.
So,
yeah, we tangented quite a bit.
So the first thing that you guys were talking about was there are moments like 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 moments where saying something out of line actually increases the quality of the cast. So I think almost every single famous moment in esports that is the case where like they go out of line. Like I feel in League of Legends this actually happens a lot, in CSGO. Like I feel like it's industry standard to avoid swearing in casts, and I feel like there are moments.
It's been creeping in lately.
Yeah, I feel like there are very hype moments.
Sports, I think.
Yeah, I feel like there are very hype moments where the casters swear, and it just creates like an environment where it's extremely hype.
It makes me think of the first one that comes to mind that really emphasizes the swear words is Captain Flowers from League of Legends. He will occasionally just be like, what a damn good play. Like he'll really push it. And you know that it was intentional. It wasn't like a slip. And there's other cases where I think, is it Deficio or Quickshot? I always get their names.
I don't think it's
Deficio slips a lot.
No, the heavy accent.
But
they both have heavy accent.
That is Deficio. That is Deficio.
Yeah.
He will occasionally let it slip, and he's funny because he like accidentally lets it slip, and then he'll like try to backtrack, but it's like part of his charm, so nobody cares. And I like that too. Like there's different moments for it, and I get what you were saying. Why did I break into that? Oh yeah, it's just been creeping in recently, and I like how it's been creeping in because it's not people swearing down at players or whatever. They're just using it to emphasize something that's like that really struck, like that really resonated with me as a viewer, so you all must be going crazy, right? Like he wants to share that feeling.
Yeah, so the moment like I was thinking about was, so last year in CSGO there was the Grand Slam event, which was year wide, and basically there were like 8 or 9 or 10 majors in CSGO, like major tournaments, not like Steam majors, which is like the giant tournament, but basically, the team that won 4, if there was one in the year, would win the Grand Slam. And Astralis did that. And I don't know exactly who the caster was, but basically he was like, and I would have to pull it up, but he was like, there's Astralis, the greatest fucking team of all time. I feel like that was like an extremely passionate moment, which encompassed all of it.
Yeah. He probably got fined for it, but it was probably worth it.
Yeah,
based off the off the
hype, off the moment. Yeah,
yeah. Like people probably will be like, "Good on you for saying that." good shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, totally.
It just has to be genuine. I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to a slip up, I mean, when it comes to something that you genuinely,
Well, I remember Astralis was like, everybody was against him too. Thorn was.
still are.
I remember
They still
Thorn was
are.
the only one pulling for Astralis at that time, and then when it happened, he was just kind of like, "Oh, I love Thorn sometimes." He's so.
I think,
Anyways,
yeah, in general, I think when it's something that you're actually not allowed to do, like generally just aren't straight out allowed to do, and you still do it because you feel like it does have impact on it, you better make sure it just comes from the heart.
Yeah.
well, and that's the funny thing about casting is that you are advised against this behavior, but goddamn, if you do that behavior and it works out, you are a hero, right? And it's just like, thank you for making that judgment call because everybody loves us now. And then, like, if you don't, then it's like that. I guess that plays into the risk thing that you were talking about earlier. About, well, some casters don't want to take those risks because, like, the threat of repercussions is way higher than what they think might come out of, like, saying that.
So, something I want to bring up that kind of goes with that is you don't think about the players that are average. You think about the players that go above and beyond and they make the risks, they take the risks. And I feel like maybe we're not at that point with commentators yet because there's not as many, so there's not as much competition. Because competition breeds excellence. But with commentators, I feel like knowing when it is appropriate and stuff like that is something that will like breed out the best commentators.
No. It's just I think it's generally the aspect that annoys me the most is when, because it's not a secret, Brawlhalla gameplay does get better and better each year, but not everyone is genuinely super good. Like I don't consider myself good when you watch me in 1v1. I may have cool moments and that's fine, but if I
want to go ahead, finish the statement, and I'm gonna.
If I play against someone like Boomie as an example, and he just destroys me, and not to say destroys me, but like he's beating me out in neutral. Actually, let's not take Boomie because that's in the match will probably be cool just because of the matchup. But me against Noel would straight up beat me out in neutral over and over and over again until I lose. And I feel like a caster might actually be like talking about it in a way that like Noel is that I'm like not that I'm good, but Noel is just better, blah blah blah, stuff like that. When technically, no, Noel just straight up is way better than me. There's no such thing that I'm good. I'm not. I'm kind of bad in this scenario. And this happens when you have an average player against a better player, and then the average player gets like small hits, and then like they're like, oh my god,
yeah, the casters go crazy. Yeah.
Oh, he got a Dlight Sair on guns, and it's just like the world ended. And it's just when you do this, it makes it so that actual legitimate good options that don't necessarily look like good options, when you get hyped for those options, it's the same impact and it's the same level of just a Dlight Sair on guns. And that's really frustrating to me. It's those moments that are the most frustrating, because I feel like casters don't have a hard time when the gameplay is entertaining and the gameplay is good, but they struggle the most when the gameplay isn't necessarily at its best.
When it doesn't bring the hype on its own.
Yeah. And
I think in your scenario, I wouldn't struggle personally, because if what you're saying is true, Noel's just constantly being out in neutral. I like taking the approach of going, okay, Diakou's getting his ass whooped, but I can tell he's thinking. So I'm going to look for what he's thinking about and looking at what he's trying to do differently and see if it works. Yeah. I like taking that approach. So maybe not every caster does it, but that's something. But the point I'm trying to lead into that is that what you're describing, I feel like, is really hard, is when you've got two players that just aren't interacting at all. So that I have trouble with. If you know what I mean. I could explain further, but you want to say something.
So what I think Diakou is more talking about is when somebody is genuinely either A, not playing up to like their potential, and they are not bringing what you would expect, or it's just like an average player like he was talking about who is expected to lose against a better player, and that's all that happens. And then what the casters do is they try to make artificial hype. Yeah, they try to make artificial hype when it's really not hype. say in the specific example that he said was the mid-tier player hits a Dlight Sair on guns, and then the casters start going crazy, which is something that I don't really see happen outside of Brawlhalla.
Interesting.
No. Like
Now I just want to look for it now.
it happens all the time.
Yeah,
Like it actually happens.
Yeah, it happens.
It's all over. It's everywhere.
Yeah, that's
It's actually.
I wouldn't.
It's really bad.
Yeah,
when
I
it comes to that.
I wouldn't call for like a discussion on this if it wasn't extremely prevalent.
Okay.
I think it's actually the most prevalent thing that is a bit frustrating when it comes to
Yeah.
casting. Other than like we have other good things, but I think that aspect is a bit frustrating. And then obviously you have the other aspect of when the gameplay isn't bringing it, that the casters need to entertain in a different way than actually try and make the gameplay look good when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's always a big
I
issue.
definitely think that's what my personal biggest weakness is that I definitely only like talking about the game.
Mhm.
And I wasn't sure. At first, I wasn't sure if that's a weakness. I still am not sure if it's a weakness because I feel like I have enough to talk about the game to where I don't have to do what you're describing with the entertainment value. But I definitely know that like some of my favorite casters, it's like Scar and Toph, right? They barely talk about Melee ever, and I love it. I love listening to them do any top 8 every time there is an Evo. Rip Evo Melee
until like actual like top 4.
Even,
then they go esports sometimes.
And they go esports and they do a good job with it. I feel like they're the only casters that actually, because like a lot. Oh, I could go into Melee forever, but the point is that like they are two casters who I think do what you're saying. Sometimes a little bit too much. I hear complaints about it, where they just talk about whatever the heck that they want. I can't tell you how many times Scar references anime in his casting quotes, but like I love it because I'm like, this is like a skill set that I have no idea what to do. And I think it comes from their relationship as friends.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Brawlhalla casting absolutely doesn't have it, except for Sparky.
Yeah, I was going to bring up.
I'm going to name drop Sparky.
Yeah,
Sparky has so much dumb pop references that I don't know where the hell he pulls them out of, and every time that he makes them, I'm like, thank you. Because I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not that guy. You be that guy. Thank you for covering that. I'll talk about the game. You just be funny. Oh,
I didn't want to mention casters, but since it's not anything negative, it's more about positive compliments. One thing about Sparky that's interesting is that he's actually just gotten better every time.
Yeah,
I think with the year, Sparky is one of the casters that truly. There's all the casters that got better and better. Obviously, it's just for some reason it feels like Sparky found his place and is doing something that no other caster is able to do in the same way at all. And he's like what I would call, one of the starting people in terms of like how Freak started out in League of Legends. He's stapling himself a bit in a way that we recognize him in Brawlhalla. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every time.
And to avoid going any more detail about a particular person or whatever, I guess I was the point of that was that yes, I feel like while we're talking about these negatives, there's also that positive of like there are some people reaching out for that entertainment value that isn't just about the game. That isn't the artificial hype, and it's happening on a small level. It's something that I really need to work on. And I have the question. I ask this question to myself all the time: is that like I'm not? It's not necessarily my strong suit to be a comedian-like caster. Do I spend that much time developing a skill that I haven't even begun making a foundation for, or do I just continue doing what I'm good at really well and being that element, like that's another thing with certain talent, because I think that Brawlhalla, what Brawlhalla has that other scenes do not, is some of the best array of play-by-play commentary out of any other game. I don't think that Smash has nearly as good play-by-play commentary as Brawlhalla does, and maybe it's because all our moves are Sair and Dlight or whatever, but I also think that it's just like something about being able to listen to some commentators just tell you what's happening on the screen in a way to where I almost feel like if I was in my car listening to it on the radio, I could know exactly what's happening and be like, God damn, this is awesome. I've heard complaints about Melee and Ultimate where the most similar platform fighter where people are just kind of like, why can't we have that radio type commentary? I think we do that really well.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think there's something that TK Breeze and Fats. I'm just gonna go on them real quick. TK Breeze and Fats commentary duo for Brawlhalla sometimes whenever we're at LANs. one example that they will do instantly when there is two players that they don't know about and that they have heard that aren't necessarily the best players in the game, they actually do not talk about the game unless something genuinely cool happens. And what they do instead is they're both entertainers. They're talking about fun stuff all the time. They're keeping people engaged to the stream, and then people are watching the game while they're listening to comedy in the background. You know what I mean? That's what
Right.
it feels like. And then sometimes poorer players do actually generally do something weird or something that can be commentated on, something that is cool, and then they're like, they snap instantly, like, oh my god.
I feel like that's a skill that came from a lot of Smash 4 matches,
sure.
though. That's the thing. Like, commentating Smash 4, those were some dark times. And I remember TK.
I'm wrong, but
like, there was times where it's just like, it was like, oof, this is hard to do. We have to find an alternative. And you got it right on the nose. They're entertainers. They're amazing at it.
Yeah,
I think Brawlhalla maybe does lack that like entertainer.
Yeah.
But what it's fine that we lack it. I just don't like the other option that we do. And it's
like to the artificial way of covering it up.
Yeah, like I get it. I see where it's coming from though, because I know that as a player, if you're rewatching that, if you're an up and coming player and you're rewatching it, you want to hear cool stuff about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would rather have it be genuine in the sense of like something actually was somewhat cool, and then they referenced it instead of making nothing that is actually special be talked about. You know what I mean? Pool It versus me might be a great example during BCX, where Pool It genuinely hit me with ground pound recovery with hammer, and I couldn't deal with it, and I was getting killed by it, and commentators were going nuts about it. They were going nuts about it.
I was in the audience, and I was sitting next to, I think it was Game Feed and Steve, and I was just laughing my ass off at you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I know you well enough to say this, because you know that it was like one of those moments, like it was like, oh, I'm not playing my best, and I can, but go ahead.
It happens, and I think in a moment where the recovery and then the long ground pound that happened, and I'm just watching it, and then it hits.
Yeah.
If they comment on that, fine, that's good, because that genuinely is a moment where like, wow, you know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But then I get nared like once, and then they're like, oh my god,
right?
You know,
the continuing, the keeping the same energy when the game isn't reflecting it. Yeah,
and then he got bodied.
When the game isn't reflecting it is an issue.
Okay, so
give a second. What happened right after that commentary on like the nair that happened after the entire thing? I just straight up bodied him, and it was like the most awkward thing ever. Because then they like reverted a bit, and then they're like, well, Diakou is good, you know, like, and it's just it just made it it just made it a bit weird, because they hype something up in the wrong times, but then they also hype something in the right times, and it's just the fake hype thing is really prevalent in Brawlhalla, and it's kind of strange. It's so strange to me. And I see where it's coming from, but I think it's a bit too much sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
sounds like ultimately, if I had to summarize this, it's a little negative. It sounds like you're saying, wish commentators were paying more attention.
More?
That's what it feels like. It feels like it's like, because there's the one case where you're looking specifically for what's good, and then if you're just kind of like, well, if I just say everything's good, I can't go wrong.
That's what it sounds like.
That's why it's like the opposite of not paying attention. It's like, oh well, I'm just going to say everything is amazing.
Yeah,
and then it's the same effect as if saying nothing is amazing.
So I'm not sure if this is really like how the casters think, but I feel like maybe they consider like the feelings of the player, and they don't want to say something that would make the player feel bad, because like if you point out something that is like, oh, this guy played awful or something like that, maybe not awful, but this guy made a mistake, for example, maybe okay, actually that point doesn't really matter. I was kind of going nowhere with that. Well, what do you think, Taza? You were thinking a bit. Okay.
Well, I like the point that you brought up about empathy, which is just kind of like, because Brawlhalla isn't the biggest community.
Yeah.
I mean, it has a ton of people playing every day, but the esports community is rather pocket-sized still. I was actually very impressed with the viewership for Pro Series. I went into that very pessimistically, and it did way better than I expected. I think that
good. I think it's a good format as well.
And I think and we definitely need to have another episode about Pro Series for North America in general.
Yeah.
But I think that also with the YouTube growing, Brawlhalla YouTube's actually grown immensely, and
It's huge.
and people love it, and they're even its its own pocket dimension, right? Like people are watching these matches and they're thinking that they're happening
live
as they're being uploaded.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever it takes to make people love it, because they still get the player names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I was saying about the empathy is that, I guess everybody, when you go to a LAN, you see everybody, unless like a few EU players didn't make it. So maybe that's something. I definitely think of players, but at the same time, I know in my experience, but I don't know. I guess I'm unusual because I talk to a lot of the players as well as commentate. I guess not every commentator does that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a difficult point that you brought up. I'm not sure if they think that way. That's something I would like to ask my peers, because I don't think I think that way, but maybe I do.
I don't think it's necessarily that you think that way, but I think the idea is that in your job, you're supposed to think that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I like how you put that. Yeah.
So, anyways, like the point I was going for was, I feel like there are times when it's important that you say that this person messed up, because like that's part of the don't create artificial hype. Just acknowledge what happened, because it's not hype. This guy just, messed up.
Definitely. When I watched Remy ground pound, I was like, "You are an idiot!" Like, it's just like, as he's like, if the word "idiot" was trailing behind him as he ground pounds, that's like how I imagined it. Because I was like, Wrench is only going to make it back up, and I love Remy to death. He's amazing. He got second at that tournament. It's great. But also, that was really stupid. Yeah. Why did he do that? I wouldn't say really stupid on air. I'd be like, the only way Wrench could get back is if he did that or something, Like, I guess the word it differently. Is that bad? Because I don't want to attack the player. I don't want chat going, "Lol, Remy, you suck," even though I might type that.
Well,
I think it does. I think it does plays injustice when you do hype something up about that. It's so frustrating because you will have another scenario where it's somewhat equal, but in this scenario, Wench could have touched the wall, but instead of touching the wall, he did something a bit more crazy. GC downlighted him and then chased out, nared him upwards in some magical way, and then he's, but
that's exciting.
Now those two plays did the same purpose, but one of those plays was genuinely wow, and then the other play,
because as a spectator, if I imagine myself being in the audience, it reminds me of, and I'm glad that you brought the Poulet match because you were involved in it. When I was in the audience, I wasn't commentating. I was just going, Diakou,
yeah, exactly.
Diakou, what are you doing? And then you won, and I was like, thank fucking Christ that you did that, because that would have been embarrassing. And that's how I was feeling, knowing you personally and knowing how you play. I was like, you're better than me, right? Not to say Poulet's didn't do really well.
No.
He probably played the game of his life, right? But also, you're getting hit by hammer ground pound that's been casting for 3 seconds, and I'm going, that's dumb. Don't do that. Same case with this. I could also see myself, depending on casting partner and atmosphere, going, Remy, Wrench was dead there. Why did you do that? I could see myself saying that depending on the scenario, and maybe that also has something to do with it. Maybe it's like the relationship or the environment that you're in, or the tone that you were setting. Because if it was a really hype exchange leading up to that point, and then that happened off stage, and it was just a whole mess of terrible but also exciting exchanges in neutral that led to this self-gimp into chase dodge and air recovery, right? Like, maybe it's okay. But if it just happened out of the blue, I would have been like, Remy, you had him. The downer did it. Yeah. Now he has to play from a stock deficit. Maybe that's more exciting for people.
Yeah. So not even in just like one.
It doesn't even have to be more exciting. It's just if another play happened that was somewhat similar, the other play actually now generally mattered.
And it could be a learning experience for the viewers and the player on review.
So go on.
Okay, so kind of along the same line, blunders is what I'm just going to go with, happen a lot in Brawlhalla. And I feel like the facade that's put up by the commentators is that what we're seeing is peak. Like we're playing the best Brawlhalla, and that's just not true. And I feel like in that like scenario where it's like, okay, say Noel like gives up 4 kills, but he still plays like pretty cleanly outside of that, and then the next game he doesn't mess up at all. But in the first game, the casters just go insane, and then the second game it's not special anymore, even though it really is special. So I think acknowledging when blunders happen is extremely important for the casual viewer to understand what's actually going on.
No, I think you'll have it in every other game so far that
Yeah.
I've heard. Like in League of Legends, I will have. I mean, moments where someone does a Rise portal poorly, they're like, "Oh, that is not the right way."
Yeah, or like fail
there's-
flash or something. It's like, no, they weren't trying to do anything else. They were just failing.
Yeah, or maybe unless they genuinely like try to do something and they failed in the but that's
No, Dyrus is legendary for his wall flashes.
and but in Brawlhalla, that case would be like, oh, that was also good, but
yeah, but it's not good. Exactly. It's just frustrating as someone who understands. It's frustrating that this information is being fed to the players.
It's making me think of most recent Smash event because I follow different few esports. Smash Ultimate. Been a lot of Snake and Olimar recently. Ally, I think, won a tournament recently against Myron, and maybe you don't know it. I don't remember. It's the one before Thunder Smash.
That's not the most. Yeah, it's not the recent one.
It's the one before that.
Yes.
Regardless, it's Snakes and Olimars for the past few months. But the way he won it, Myron jumping forward aired as Olimar from the left side of the stage every time to recover. Ally starts realizing that and just forward airs as Snake. Snake has the spike attack where he lifts his leg up and just spikes him down. He killed Myron at 33% 3 times in grand finals. 3 times. You know what the casters were doing? Does he have any other options off the edge of that? Like, come on. Like they were they're not grand finals material players, but anybody could realize that Myron was taking the same option every time off the side of the stage and jumping into a Snake forward air at the point where Ally was just like, are you seriously not respect? He had to do it, you know? Like, it was just one of those things where, like, yeah, he made the grand finals. He beat a lot of good players, but also, no, that's not a good thing. Maybe you should try something else from the ledge because you're dying. And that's not good. And the casters made it very obvious to the point where the chat was almost ridiculing it. But that's the bittersweet feeling, right? Because everybody was going like, lol, Myron, how'd you even get to grands? This Olimar beat that many people because of how the casters are going about it. And then you're saying in Brawlhalla, it would just be like, Ally's got such amazing reads, he can find forwarders on Snake that no other Snake player can. You know, that might be how we would say it. And then everybody would just be like, PogChamp, Ally.
Possible. I think it's more about how you lead up to it. Because if you actually, if you're leading up to it with the aspect that Ally actually read this, blah, 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 and then you go for the hype aspect.
Dude, he jumping forward air like 17 times. It was brutal. It was like, what? I couldn't believe it.
At that point, it would be denial.
At that point,
in that point, I feel like Brawlhalla casters would try and make it about the person who is edge guarding rather than doing the same option 17 times.
Yeah, because I was baffled that Ali took that long to do it. Because it worked like once in a game, and he didn't go for it anymore. And then like when the bracket reset happened, he just kept killing him that way, and it was fine. It was another thing like every time, because when you get down in Smash, you can roll left or right if you miss your tech. Always roll to the right. Doesn't matter where. Every time. I don't. Maybe that's not what it is specifically, but the point is that he picked up one option, always, regardless of getting punished. It was like an autopilot almost. It was so interesting. But I have a better idea of what you're saying.
I think we just do have an issue of fake in brawls. I think we, and I can see why, because the way we started out 2016, 2015, 2017 even, it was smaller on, like, it wasn't as big as it is now. And I think we tried to sell an image of esports instantly from the get-go, in a way that was a bit more artificial, which was fine for the times, because this is just, we had to start somewhere, right? But now we're seeing those old habits still prevail sometimes. And the reason why I say fake instead of fake hype is because we've heard fake storylines sometimes, dude. Like there are actually times where I hear where you do hear something so strange about a player, and you're just like, what am I hearing about this person? And it's just I can't. I'm trying to think about a specific scenario, but there are some players, like the more oddball players. Me. I think it's happened. Noel, it's happened, where casters might just randomly say something about the player that he is, or something like that isn't even true anymore.
Yeah.
But they want it to be true, and it's just strange to me. And
Yeah.
I don't think storylines are bad. I think storylines are great. It's just I'm just more talking about the fake tangent.
So something I think I was gonna say this earlier, but I forgot. So something I think I'm not entirely sure is that Brawlhalla is not very big, like in terms of how many orgs are invested in Brawlhalla. That's unarguable. I think something that maybe it's not even conscious that the commentators try to do is they try to sell players rather than put other players down. So every opportunity that they have to bring something up that maybe it's not even relevant anymore, like at all, like what Diakou is saying, but they try and bring it up as a selling point to get someone into a potential org involved. Like I'm not if I was commentating in 2019 and I was commentating Tiffany and Twilight versus Boomie and Remy, I'm not gonna say, wow, we have the 2016 world champion and
Hold on, let me get up
winner-
Diakou's Twitter really quick. One sec.
and 2018 winter champion playing against the 2017 world champions. No, it's not relevant anymore.
Oh, actually got rid of it. Yeah, that's true.
It's
Diakou
just-
used to have that in your bio. I'm calling you out. I know it was there. It looks good now. But
It's
it was
just
there.
I feel like you have to be realistic about these things, and
I never thought about that. I guess that happens a lot. I think sometimes
Yeah.
it's okay. Like
Sometimes it is okay.
I liked bringing up Blue and Tiff about the winter champs.
I hate that. I think that is awful.
You think that's awful? Like being like, hey, they won last
It's
year,
been over a year since it happened.
even though it's the same tournament. And
In
defending a
that
title?
situation, it's okay because of the
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's different. That's
But-
Okay,
yeah,
but
that's
like when you're reaching for like, say it's like a top 13 match or something,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, whatever, and okay, and you're building it up as if it's grand finals, and it's
Yeah.
like this is just a qualifier match for top 12. Like who cares?
yeah.
Right? Like they it's a best of three.
I think one thing that I think Boomie actually brought it up. Well, I actually get upset when people are like, "Oh, the world champ, Diakou, the previous world champion, in this match now." You know, the reason why that upsets me is because it undervalues who I am now.
hmm
It actually undervalues who
Interesting.
I am now. Like it does.
Interesting.
It's like keeping me stuck in this old.
Yes.
old times,
Exactly.
and but that's. I'm in a different time. This is
Yeah.
completely different. Times have changed. Stuff have
So
changed.
does that mean that I should go, oh, Boom, and instead of saying Boomie, previous rank 1 player, to just, oh, Boomie is kind of a good Brawlhalla player?
No. So
No,
yeah, I know
because
you're
he's-
joking. I know you're joking, but
But seriously, yeah.
go adding on to that someone as an example like Ethan, or no, like Remy. Okay, like Remy.
Okay.
You can say I can make an argument that he peaked in 2017 because he had his best performances. You're not gonna go and bring up that Remy peaked in 2017. You're gonna talk about what he is now, his results recently, and
Which is inconsistent, but
yeah.
also like
inconsistent.
recently.
But you can say he has potential. Like I think leaving it as he has potential. He used to be extremely good. Is good. But bringing
Yes.
that up every 5 seconds when you talk about him, like literally yesterday
Okay.
in the Pro Series, they were talking about Effie a lot. Like I feel like they super overdid it.
Yeah, nobody knows who Effie is.
Yeah, nobody. It's been a year.
Besides
and a half.
pro
besides
scene
the people
of
who were there then.
the 16 players that are actually in the, and not even them. There's a lot of players in there that don't even have a clue. I wouldn't be surprised if Akno and Blaze and them don't know. But maybe they do. But go ahead.
And I think the issue, there's one issue that happens when you do that, and it's actually, if Effie did good, oh, he's supposed to do good because he was good.
Oh,
But no, he's doing good in this new era where he hasn't played forever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do.
But the way they set it up is that he should be good. You know what I mean?
It
And
was
then
like
if he
when
does bad,
LDC.
and if he does bad, then it's like, why is this good?
Why is
player
he
doing
here? Yeah. Like what?
It's just
Another-
really frustrating.
another example of that. outside of Brawlhalla, but it comes to mind: StarCraft 2, or StarCraft Brood War, Flash. A lot of people know his name. It was like similar to levels of Faker at the time.
Yeah.
Retired, came back, tried StarCraft 2, and the commentators were like, yeah, it's Flash, but he's a Brood War player, right? Like, we don't expect anything out of StarCraft 2. And then he started doing really well. But they didn't talk about how he was the best Brood War player ever and that he was going to dominate StarCraft 2 or whatever. They're just kind of like, yeah, he probably could do okay.
Yeah.
But I don't expect him to amount to anybody now. It's been years, right? And then so I guess you want a more tempered recollection of their past. It's just been like, hey, here's an old name. It's been a long time. Let's see if he can perform.
I think LDZ actually got done dirty in my
Yeah,
opinion.
LDZ is
Because the 2017 World Champion victory is generally one of the most craziest feats I've ever seen from LDZ in his lifetime, and it's because that people kept saying that the casters were saying that, oh, he's LDZ, he's amazing, he's good. LDZ was not the best player 2017. Period. Honestly, he wasn't even the best tournament player the day before the tournament started. Maybe he wasn't even the 5th best player, 6th best player, in my opinion. If you just look at like what we knew about what us players knew about LDZ, but the madman won, and you know what I mean. And it was just insanity. And we still got the point. I'm like, yeah, oh my, this is crazy. He won 2 times now, and yeah, it was crazy that he won, but you didn't actually get to see it from the perspective that this guy isn't what he was in 2016 at all.
Yeah.
And he still did what we saw him do, and his victory got undervalued so hard
because it was expected.
It was expected, but it wasn't.
And then people were just kind of like, "Oh yeah, LDZ won again." Everybody thought so,
but that was
that's the narrative that's actually been like saved in time.
Yep.
And if you ask anybody that wasn't actively fighting against sparring and watching LDZ's development, you're going to go like, oh well, for 2 years LDZ reigned.
Was the best player.
He was the king.
Yeah,
and that's not the case. And you could even argue that like because of BCX 2018 with EU being in the grand finals for 2v2s, that European was the best 2v2 region, even though Boomie and Remy just crushed things everywhere. Although Eddie and Cake were doing really well. I guess that's not as good of an example.
Yeah, so how I would
it's not the same, but maybe.
So how I would compare it, it's the similar drop off is someone wins a tournament, right? And then they win the next tournament. That always gets massively undervalued. The motivation and dedication that it takes to stay at the top right after you win is insane.
It's
especially
hard.
now.
Especially now when this is I'm just gonna briefly touch on it because I think I could do a whole video on this. There is always someone that is working harder than you trying to take your spot. And the fact that players win multiple tournaments in a row is insane. Like what Sandstorm is doing right now is massively undervalued. Nobody is giving him enough credit.
It's really hard, and everybody expects it, and they all want to see him lose.
Yeah,
and you were we were at, was it Austin when you first heard of Cyril at StarCraft 2?
Yeah,
and then you saw that he was actually just winning everything over and over again. And it was one of those cases. I also do agree. Although what's awesome about StarCraft, I'm a huge fanboy of it, is that they didn't undervalue that too much. They actually were excited every time that he won, but I bet your ass that it wasn't as appreciated as it should be.
Yes, exactly.
He won all year and then won BlizzCon.
Yeah,
and Sandstorm's amounting to a similar level at the moment.
Yeah, so the dedication that it takes to win back-to-back tournaments. Imagine winning a tournament in the end of 1 year and then going an entire year without doing well and then coming back, making up all that lost ground. And then winning again.
Yeah, see, that's really exciting.
It was like Dash happened. The game was fundamentally so different from 2016 to 2017, and the guy had absolutely no practice, which actually might have worked in his favor because he kind of joined in a way that like everyone else was a bit more clean stated a bit because of Dash happening and all that stuff. But that's not the point. It's that this guy wasn't anything 2017 at all. It was nothing. literally nothing. He didn't go to a single LAN that happened in 2017. He went to nothing. He just showed up at BCX, practiced what I think it was 1 month, 2 months before BCX. He's got back into it. He was not the name to beat.
And what's hilarious is that he almost did the same thing again in 2018.
Yeah.
And that gets undervalued. And I guess because we're really on the topic of LDZ again.
Yeah.
But
I think what the stemmed from was potential storylines or narratives that are much more real and much more gritty and more compelling are being buried by
under fake.
this. I want to say fake because it isn't fake. It's just
artificial. It's
forced.
Yeah.
Forced is what I would like to say. Because they're kind of like they're looking at a title, they're deciding the title's what matters, and they're saying this player is defined by their titles forever and ever. Right? Yeah. It's like you have reached top 8 this many times at any point in time during your career, which means that you're this good. Like they're quantifying it as like, oh, well, you're at that level. You should always be at that level.
Yes,
slumps don't happen, and it's devaluing a lot of players' achievements, low points, and rises again, right? Because then, if say somebody like Diakou or Dobrain or whoever has a year slump and then starts coming back, like Dobrain placing a final round, totally blew my expectations out of the water.
Yeah.
But everybody's just kind of like, it's Dobrain. 2016, he was amazing. Look at his Steam thing. He had a ton of tournament wins. And now that you're putting that in perspective for me, it's been going like, damn, I think I've done that a few times. I think I've gone like, oh, whatever, it's Dobrain.
Yeah.
And it completely devalues how much he had to re-engineer his play, because you almost have to unlearn something and learn it again to be able to do that, especially when something happens with Dash. That's very interesting.
Just imagine a world where, like, okay, let's say I were to win something after just think about it, I have won in a 1v1 in 3 years.
Yeah.
I think it's actually 3. It's actually 3 years.
Yeah.
And I have the title of world champion. Good player, blah blah blah. Like
it would be expected of you. Actually, I wouldn't say that. I love shit talking you on cast.
It's just like if that was to happen and the moment wasn't grand, because Jesus Christ, it's been so long, you know what I mean? That would be just sad.
Yeah, it would be.
It would. That would just be a sad moment.
And that's what that part of me loves. A large part of me loves that controversial personality that you sometimes put off through your social media or whatever, is because I can go into a cast confidently and be like, Diakou. You know, what, you know what? He hasn't done anything, right? Like, what is he gonna do now? And then you do things, and then I get to kind of look like a dick, and then you look really good. Things like that. Maybe I don't act. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, with how I'm saying things, but like because of that element, it gives me an opportunity to say, yeah, he was really good at one point, but he's not doing anything. I don't expect him to do anything now. And then you work really hard, and I go, I can see the result of his work. He's been saying that he's been doing it, but now you can see it, and that's fun for people, and they can go, maybe he's really coming back, and there's that element of storyline. Instead of just being like, Diakou won before, makes sense that he won that.
Yeah.
Which happens to other players.
And another thing, like going along the same lines, is I feel like casters in general under hype the actual winning moments, unless it is seriously like a crazy play. You know what I'm saying? Like, say someone goes off stage and like goes bonkers for the last kill of a tournament. Mm-hmm. Then they'll go insane. They'll be like, wow, Sandstorm won a tournament, or like the tournament. But if it's just a standard, like, solid gameplay, they don't get hype at all. And the winning moments are just...
Sometimes that's hard. Especially if the last game is like a 3 stocks to 1 situation. Especially in 2v2s. I remember a few cases where it's just like, really exciting things happened up to that point. But by the end, it was like, yep, these guys won. It happened.
To be fair, though, I think lately, when it comes to at least a winning moment... in most cases, there is. I think that's actually the first time I generally know that there is artificial hype now, and they want BMG as a whole just do want that. Oh my God, X won, blah blah. They just won the X championship.
Yes, and that's because it's a good thing, and it's usable too. You could like take that soundbite and use it for anything. And
yes, they started doing, and I know it started happening after like every single tournament lately. I know what you mean by winning moment though, because there are some times where. Okay, they won, and then
and then that's it.
But what I think what you're talking about is that it would have been cool to like, let's say Blue, because Blue, okay, this is actually something I want to talk about. Just quick, it's just Blue in Springs.
Oh my!
Actually, straight up did like the longest loser run bracket in the history of Brawlhalla.
Yeah,
Yeah, in history of
and
Brawlhalla, right?
nobody's talking about it.
I think he was out of top 128.
Yeah.
Genuinely, no one knows, no one cares. Oh, Blue won another tournament. That was not the case at all, because what could have had, what Cassius could have done. I'm not saying Cassius did a bad job. I'm just saying that what Cassius could have done as he wins is winning so many games in the losers bracket, going on the longest losers run. Maybe they didn't even know about it. They should have had someone tell them about it at least.
And that was bringing the online part up again, where I was talking about, like, when we come in, it's like the tournament had already been running before we're even like in the studio, and we had to like go and we had to dig back, and we did have like a list of upsets, but it is like kind of, I don't know. I remembered looking at that and going, "Whoa, Blue out at top 128 in the losers," and just saying that and kind of being flabbergasted, and then being so surprised by how the winners bracket went, right? Because all these seed 40, seed 50 people, or power rank 40, 50 people were doing so well. But then there's just Blue creeping around. I'm like, I think Blue's going to win the tournament again through losers. I remember like having that moment, but I guess it wasn't, because I guess by the time that it happened, it was just kind of like, yeah, Blue wins another online championship. Always happens.
Yeah,
right.
But that's not what it is.
Yeah, a losers bracket run is incredibly taxing, and maybe that wasn't stressed enough. And I like that you brought that up, because I don't think I personally thought about it.
You know, like this is what happened. Listen to this. Just listen to what happened.
Okay.
He plays against FTP. Then he plays against some guy named Sky's Boo, and then he plays Acno. He loses. Top 128. Right. Mm-hmm. Listen to what happens. Beats Paris 2-0, Stundare 2-0, Ished 2-0, DM Vinke, it's a Vrax player, 2-1. Plays against Diakou 2-0, Machete 2-1, Adimestic 2-0, Acno 3-0, Acno 3-1. I don't know why it's ordered wrong, but Knees 2-1, Simple 2-1, Blaze 2-0, The Ninja 3-1.
He took out the entire European scene.
Dude, that is literally every good EU player on the planet.
Back to back.
And some of the sets were 2-1, super close, and he had the mental fortitude to keep winning. And then bracket reset Acno 3-0, 3-1, still somewhat dominantly. It was an insane moment. Wasn't not mentioned.
Wasn't the bracket reset? And he put Acno in like a place where he was just switching characters constantly. Yeah. Like he just couldn't. He had no idea what to do. Blue had the run of a lifetime. That's like a mango run.
Let's not even talk about how he did it, because he realized quick that the Koji wasn't working out, and he actually swapped to Asuri midway through the tournament. Something that he's been working on, and then he continued with that, and then he was just piling through literally every single player.
Yeah, Blue's insane. I personally, before even going into the cast, when I saw him drop out at 128, I was like, you know what? Maybe Blue just has like a good start to the season and doesn't carry it on, because he didn't have the greatest BCX. He hasn't been to too many lands, but when he went to lands, it was like,
it wasn't what you would expect at all.
Right. And so I was thinking maybe this guy's just an online nut or whatever. But no, he's really, really put in the time in this year, and that losers bracket run proves it. And I guess you're saying that he kind of got robbed of that narrative a little bit because of the narrative of reigning champ. Right?
Yeah. And I wish they would have created, like, they love. I know, like, everyone loves storylines, and they do too. Most casters do, but I'm surprised that this didn't happen, you know. And the LDZ moment, it didn't happen either, you know. Like, the LDZ moment should have also been blah 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 happened. It wasn't that the fact that he won 2 times; it's the fact that he won 2 times the way he did. That would have valued it so harder. And it's not the fact that Blue just won Springs; it's the fact that Blue won Springs the way he did. And then the ending soundbite does not reflect that, or like the narrative wasn't pushed at the end. And I think that may be a better point for Boomie when it comes to like an ending, how a match ends.
There's so many people that it happens to, where they just get robbed of the like glory that they deserved.
Sounds like it goes more into what I said earlier. That's just like I think production and commentary just needs to pay attention, not more often, but to more things.
Yeah, understand what's really going on. Yeah, and
that's interesting.
Yeah, so just like do you know how long we've been going? It's been a while.
We've been going for a while.
Okay, yeah. So just like one more quick thing I want to talk about. which really personally bugs me, is
Okay.
in Brawlhalla, there is so much attention on money. Like, in the finals, people are like,
This could be an entire different podcast.
it's said about like too many times that this is like a $5,000 match or something. Like, nobody cares about that. They're playing to win.
I bet you some of the players. I bet you the players half the time don't care about that. I mean, there's different cases, but
players. I don't think the players do. I don't think most of the viewers do. I think they're doing it for the other value that they're thinking that org sponsors.
Well, and you're talking to somebody whose origin was from community color code tournaments, where I had one CC to my name to give off to the winner that usually just got given away to the audience. And there were still some really hype matches. Like, I mean, the archives 3-year videos, there's still 10K videos of like Pugsy versus Dobrain that people were like, this is sick, because they were playing to win. And I wasn't just like, guys, this is for a community color code. You can reskin your character. Applies to everybody. They are fighting for it right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though it's like $1 million gazillion, people are in it for the competition, not for the prize.
Yeah. And
allegedly. Maybe there's some people. I mean,
yeah, there's some people, obviously, that people.
But I get what you're saying. You don't want that to be presented to the audience. What you want presented to the audience is the encounter, the battle, not the reward.
Well, I think that it's important for the audience to know, but I don't think it's the audience wants it shoved down their throats too often.
Thunder Smash was the most recent Smash Ultimate tournament. I despised it.
Did they talk about it a bunch?
Well, they had to mention it a few times because of how stupid it is to put that much, like a winner takes all event for one of the poorest payout scenes in esports. Like, Brawlhalla actually has it better than Smash players.
Yep.
90% of the time, because we have an organization that made the game that supports their game.
Yeah.
Smash Ultimate doesn't have this outside of Nintendo slapping their brand on it, so players really need the money.
We and then when top player potential in terms of like making big bucks, like if we're talking streaming or like orgs, salaries and stuff like that. But in terms of just like, if you're decent at the game and you're getting good placements, you're fine. Smash struggles in that aspect.
Yeah, and it particularly struggles when you give it all to one person, and then everybody else just feels like garbage because they worked so hard. An event where they got, like, I think second place got 2,000.
Yeah, 2,000. You're right.
Like, whoa, insane. But the casters had to talk about the money because it was crazy. It was a $20,000 money match basically for first place.
Yeah, but they didn't talk about it. They actually talked about it a lot, and it was actually weird because also when they had like this they had this other casting.
Dude, it was, if you want to talk about fake and forced, talk about Thunder Smash. Yeah, at least we don't have that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's just there's things that can be improved, and I feel like complacency has hit.
Yeah.
I think complacency truly has hit. I think for a bit. I think it was fine in 2016. It was fine in 2017. I think in 2018 there was a shift a bit. People got a bit better, but 2019 is pretty much the same as 2018. It's just rerun. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like 2018 just got rerun, and 2019 is happening. Nothing's getting better in that aspect. And
did you not like Final Round?
Final Round was good.
I thought it was good too.
It was an offline event, and I think it was super hype. I think offline events does have it better. I think most of casting issues do stem from online
events,
but there is moments that from the online habits does transfer to the casting habits, because the storyline information or like talking about X players old achievement does also still happen. We do now have enough information that we can talk about different stuff. You don't have to create stuff out of the blue anymore. I feel like you can actually genuinely just take what we have. Dude, you have a lot in Brawlhalla now. It's been
we have a history. We have a culture.
It's been a lot now. It's been a lot of time now.
Yeah.
I think the last ending statement is just, what can we actually look at right now and do better, really?
Yeah.
And you definitely I feel like both of you feel like this is like, even though I don't personally see outcries on Twitter or Reddit or whatever, it's like this undercurrent of like, you know what, we could be doing better right now. Like we're in a state where we've got more money, we've got more events. Let's just improve because we should be.
I think the perspective I'm coming from isn't that it's not good. It's good. It's just it could be a lot better. And it's just as the players are playing better, and as the production is getting better, because that's what's happening. As the money is getting more, I think the casting is the same, which is a
Yeah.
bit of an, it's not necessarily an issue, but it's just a bit complacent, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because of competition. I don't want to talk too much about that or whatever.
Well, when's the last time we've had a new caster join the scene?
Yeah, exactly.
It's been years, right?
Mm.
It was basically just established at the start, and then
Yeah, I mean, obviously, not everyone wants to do the job either. You have to be somewhat interested in it, blah blah. Like,
but it's
all
all no, it's hard to get into it. When I
Yeah.
started, you could just I literally just called a Twitch channel, grabbed Gravy Cancel, and I just was like, I'll do it. Asked for some CC codes to the community manager right at the time. Got sent to my email. I got a tournament, guys. Put it on a challenge, and then the community was just willing to do volunteer work for it because everybody loved it so much, and anybody could become a caster. Now I
think-
feel like it's hard to enter the scene.
It's hard to be an official caster, but I think Baggle's doing an amazing job when it comes to like just trying new casting talent.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because
you're
Bagel-
right. They're actually taking a great first step. I agree.
I've seen 10. I've sent 10 plus new casters, dude. Straight up, I've actually like. There's so many people casting lately that in Bagel tournaments, which is cool. But I do agree it's beyond hard, and probably at least right now in the current state and how things are going, probably still impossible for 2019 for a new caster to be an official caster, and by that I mean the major tournaments.
Yeah, they would need to like. So what Smash casters do, because there's not even like an org that like pays them out really, except for like DreamHack. DreamHack, in my experience, is really the only one that like really treats or at least pays out very well for their talents. But you would have to almost go to Brawlhalla events and volunteer your time to get onto the desk, show what you're capable of after you've practiced online a little bit, so that you're asked to come back. That's like, and that's just like a talent way of doing things. That's like what actors do in Hollywood. That's what, in any case, you're never going to get hired for anything unless people say, where's that person? I want them back. And that needs to happen. And I guess we haven't had somebody passionate enough to step up to that. But until that happens, and maybe that's actively happening with Bagel right now. Out of the 10 people, maybe there's that one person that's like, I want to do this. They'll show up to an event one day. I'll sit down with them or something, and it's just like, dude, I want to work with you again. And then we have a new caster. So what we're talking about could very well be in the works.
Yeah. Well, I think we've gone through most of like what is frustrating with the casting.
Stagnant is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's stagnating. Where
Stagnating,
everything else is improving, casting is stagnating. And
I don't, and it's kind of weird to phrase it that way as well, because like it's not that it's bad. It's just it could be so much better.
So much better.
But I feel like the effort is not put into it, and obviously there needs to be value for it as well. There needs to be a reason for someone to put more effort into it. I get that as well, but there are just tidbits that should at least be worked on. I feel
so here's what I'm thinking in conclusion, because I don't want this to be like we're talking about the death of casting. Let's talk about next step. The next step. So we've identified there's like the awesome things about Brawlhalla, right? The Pro Series. There's double the events to enter in. Tons of fun things to do for Brawlhalla. There's themed things, crossovers. There was that Hellboy event. Whatever, the movie didn't do that great, but the game was awesome, right? Like all that cool stuff. The next step is we've been winging it as casters. I did not go to school to be a professional commentator. And it always strikes me like that, because there are people that I meet and I shake your hand and I go like, I've met with TK Breezy, and I'm like, dude, I idolized you growing up. I watched your VG Bootcamp stuff back before he was even that huge, and I remember the day that he got hired as a sponsored caster, first sponsored caster in Smash. And I get to work alongside you now. It's like, what did I do?
a different game.
Yeah, it's a slap in the face. But also, like, I'm not saying that I'm super lucky and that I'm a super genius. No, we probably need some training, and there probably needs to, like, okay, we've gotten to a point where yes, production's super great. We now have events that are professional. We have all these things. It's time to take who we have and begin a system to do better.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
and I think actually there can be more assists. I think actually just sit down together and then be like,
yeah,
'cause I don't think that's happened. I don't think actually no one has
there
done
are.
that yet.
I can tell you from experience, there's not very many caster conferences at all, but it's in talks. That's something that I've been thinking about. So I like that we're having this conversation now, because I don't think that you two or anyone else are the only ones that are thinking about it. I think it's something that's thought about and talked about within at least the circle of casters that I work with. And this podcast actually gives me a lot of really good ideas of where to start potentially, both with myself and my peers. So that's interesting. It's actually very exciting. I think that the more offline events that we've got, the better the experience is going to be in general, because like offline events write themselves when it comes to storylines, and you can even almost cast them as an isolated instance, right? Because you could have, like you said, TK and Fats. They're not Brawlhalla casters, but they will cast for Brawlhalla, and if they're there at the events, they get to see the players that made it through all the way from day 1 to day 3, and that's exciting to them. And then they know those players just in that moment. So offline events, I think, will actually go very well with what we've got. And then the real key is trying to make online events feel more authentic than what they are right now, which is just like regurgitating past achievements and then tacking it on to a wall of gold stars.
Yeah.
Play-by-play happens, and then there's hype moments about not really hype things. And
I liked Hazen though. I had a lot of fun watching Hazen. Maybe I'm just I'm dummy, but I that was fun.
Yeah, isolated cases like that
They do
just
occur.
it happens, and it's chaos, and those are fine. It's just the other moments, but
Yep.
I like this. I think that covered most of it was weird because it was such a not I can't imagine making timestamps for this because it was basically tangents after one another, but
yeah,
we got a lot of stuff out in the open. Yeah, I think that's my piece.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching. Follow us on Twitter.
Thank you, Diakou. Follow him on Twitter.
Especially follow him on Twitter.
Yes, absolutely.
He's lagging in the Twitter department.
Oh my god, that's messed up.
But yeah, thank you.
Talk about stagnating, huh?
Peace out, boys.